Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to go over the top 25 most valuable special illustration rares, take a look at the release date price, how much they drop, and if it's time to pick them up. Starting off the list at number 25 is Miraidon EX from Scarlet and Violet base. Really easy pull rates in that set. Release date price at $59, hit a low of $13, which is a drop of 78%, which is the largest drop in value on this list, but one of the best looking legendary art cards out there. Next we have Iron Boulder, release date price of $22, hit a low of $18, not a very expensive card to begin with, and Temporal Forces did just come out a couple months ago, so it could drop a little further. Next we have Gholdengo at $43 and dropping 58% to $18. Not everything Paradox Rift is rising in value, so this is one you can still pick up at a reasonable price. Next at number 22, Chien-Pao EX, one of my favorite cards in Pao Day Evolve. Got very lucky I pulled this in my booster box. Had a release date price of $34, hit a low of $17 when it was out of favor in the format, and now it's rising back up into the current format. So anytime a card goes out of favor in a format, great buying opportunity, just like that card was. Next at number 21, our first Terra Pokemon, Garchomp EX. Fan favorite Pokemon, but I think the Terra Crown is turning people away from wanting to collect this card. Release date price of $27, dropping 41% to $16. It is rising back up in value though. At number 20, we have Iron Hands, super playable in the TCG, so this card came roaring back in value because of that. I had a release date price of $37, dropped 43% before regaining most of its value in the new format. Next up, at number 19, we have God of War EX from Scarlet and Violet base set, release date price of $47, dropping 62%, hitting a low of $18. This card is back to dominating the TCG, just in the most recent tournament going on right now. So gaining over 50% of its value back. I think it's very important to pay attention to the TCG because you can see cards that go out of favor drop in value. Great time to buy, just in case it comes back into rotation, like we've seen with Miraidon, Chien-Pao, Iron Hands, and God of War now. Buy it when there is a chance. Next up at number 18 with Alakazam from 151. Release date price of $41, dropping 37% to $26. Smallest drop so far for a set that's been out for 6 months. Probably my least favorite SIR from 151, and of course I will pull 3 copies of this card. Can't pull the other SIRs that I need from my master set. Next up, at number 17, we have Iron Valiant, release date price of $59, then a spike up to $70, eventually dropping to $26, and that's when I picked it up. This is a great example of how most cards play out and why we have to be patient and not FOMO. They spike in value after release, time to sell for max value if you pull this card, and then they drop drastically in value before settling down in a range for a buying opportunity and then rise up in value once supplies gets eaten up over the month. That's Pokemon card buying 101. Okay, next up at number 16 is Zapdos EX, my favorite artwork in the 151 set. Still haven't pulled it. Release date price of $46, dropping 33% to $31, which I think is a fair value for a card that looks this good. I really want this card in Japanese just because Japanese cards have way better texture wise compared to English cards. Next up at number 15 we have Chi-Yu. Now this card is very interesting. Release date price of $21, dropping a small amount of just 33%, $14. So it's one of the lowest value SIR since it was a new Pokemon. And out of nowhere shot up in value, tripling up in value. I don't know if I believe this card is worth $40 compared to Miraidon, Chien-Pao, God of War. Those cards are more playable and this card is worth more than them. I don't believe it. At number 14, we have Gouging Fire, which just came out, so we'll have to wait and see how much this will actually drop in price. Release date price of $39, so probably maybe low 30s to even in the 20s. Next up, another new card has fallen in value since it had a higher release date price than Gouging Fire. Release date price of $59, down 37% to the low of $37, so you save yourself $22 already. Still like to think it'll be under $30 eventually. Halfway there, at number 12, we have Altaria, had a release date price of $27, but dropped a small amount of just 30%. As you can see, just like every other card, it loses a third in value if you can wait. This card has just been gradually falling since it was released, but spiked up out of nowhere, just like Chi-Yu. It's actually very important to keep an eye out on TCG Player nowadays to see which cards can be bought out next. So that way, if it's under value, just get it now, because if it's like 30 cards or less, easy buyout candidate. Number 11, Venusaur, release date price of $41, only dropping $6 in value to a low of $35, holding that release date price extremely well. Pokemon 151 is going to be the greatest set ever released because these cards are just not falling in value like everything else. Now we get into the top 10 most valuable cards, starting off with Charizard from Obsidian Flames. This is probably my least favorite Charizard in recent memory. Release date price of $98. down a massive 57%, hitting a low of $42. Blame it on easy pull rates, blame it on a cooler, shinier version released later, blame it on just it being a Terra Pokemon, so people don't want it. Next up, number 9, my favorite Kanto starter, Blastoise in the Deep Sea. This is an amazing card in person. This card barely has budged since its release day price, holding so steady at $45. Expect this card to spike up once 151 supply gets eaten up. At number 8, we have Walking Wake, release day price of $40, spiked up to $55, dropped back down to $38, before rising back up to $48. This is how cards play out when the first come out. First few months, let it go up and down, spike up, come back down. Let it sell into a price range before picking it up. In Japan, this card is like under $30, so expect it to be in that similar range afterwards. Next up, at number 6, we have Roaring Moon. I think this was the first $100 card on release. It spiked up even above and beyond that $100 eventually, and then it dropped 50% in value. Hit the range of $52, held that range for a few months until the recent spike. At number 5, we have the best looking SIR from Temporal Forces. That's $66 on release day, which is quite low for such a playable card, because considering Roaring Moon was $100 and this is just as playable. So not surprised that it shot up in value and got over 100. So that's where Roaring Moon was. So let's see where it holds its value in the long run. At number 4, we have the Shiny Mew. I guess people like this kind of art style. I don't. It's not one of my favorite cards. I thought this would drop even more because of that, but I guess people like it. Release day price of $134, fell that typical amount of 50%, hit a low of $75, stay in that range. Let's see how many reprints special sets like this gets. I know Shiny Fates cards have no value and Crown Zenith got a reprint, but that's rising up in value now. Hopefully this will bring down the value if there is a reprint. Next up at number 3, we've got Raging Boat, which is all the rage right now in the Twilight Masquerade format with Teal Mask Ogerpon. We'll have to wait and see if it's legit, if we'll hold on to this kind of value. Otherwise, sell now at max value. Buy it back later when it's out of favor again. At number 2, we have Charizard from 151, probably the greatest SI art, because this thing has refused to give up value. Usually high-end cards just tank immediately, but this one sells steady at release day price or above release day price, showing the demand collectors have for this card, because everybody is ripping 151 non-stop. But this card has just not dropped in value, even with all the supply out there. Not playable at all, so once this card is like eaten up in supply, I bet you this card is going to jump up in value. And currently, number 1 is Shiny Charizard from Paldean Fates, just slightly itching over Charizard from 151 right now. These two might flop positions in the future. Unlike the previous Charizard though, this one was very expensive to begin with, $184. Dropped a massive 44% to a low of 103, so the same price as the previous Charizard at its low. And it looks like it's holding steady now around the $110, $120 mark area. Let me know what you guys think of this list so far. If you're expecting any major changes from the top 25 a few months from now, I think we'll follow up on this video every once in a while. I'm just really surprised at how well 151 has held up. Barely dropping in value, which is crazy to me when everything else on this list has dropped like 30 to 50%, and they just dropped like a couple dollars. That's the most shocking thing so far on this list for me. Now, I want to go over a tier list I use to rank all these cards. C tier, here are the most affordable SIRs based on the lowest value they hit. Mostly new generation Pokemon, Gen 9, Terra Pokemon, not very fan favorite Pokemon. So if you're unpopular, you make it here. The $20 and under crew, that's what I call this group. Next up is B tier. This is the fair value range, the semi-popular Pokemon like Venusaur type of range. For most cards that aren't playable fall into this category, that $25, $35 range. That's why you see Iron Valiant fell to this point, which is one of my favorite cards. Amazing artwork. Most of the 151 cards are holding value around here because they're not playable. And these Temporal Forces cards, you know, they're remakes of earlier generation Pokemon, so they kind of hold some value, but they might fall a tier lower eventually. Next up, A tier is the 40 and up club. Blastoise is the standard I base it off on. SRR should all be below Blastoise in value unless you're more popular than Blastoise. He's one of the most popular Pokemon in my mind. Or either be extremely playable, which is the case for all these cards are extremely playable, or they're brand new, like Teal Mask and Ursulina, so they could always drop a tier below in the future. And here we have S tier, the most valuable Pokemon cards so far. The Charizard tier, the $100 plus card club. I actually wonder how popular Greninja is, because this is going to be a test to something that's not Gen 1. It's a $100 plus card, but if it drops to where Mew is, I think that's going to be a fair price for it, because in Japanese it's a $60 card, and Pokemon cards tend to be more expensive in English. But we'll have to wait and see. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. As you can see with these cards, $100 cards that fell 45% to 57%. So we'll see where Greninja falls into. Let me know what you guys think you'll fall to. Also, I'm curious what your thoughts are or strategy when it comes to buying Pokemon cards. Personally for me, I think general rule of thumb is going to be 30 to 50% down from release date price. As you can see with Temporal Forces, those cards have not dropped down at all, so I'm not picking any of those up yet. And you can see most of these cards outside of 151 cards, the starters at least, they all drop 30 to 50%. You can see right here with these big boy cards. Otherwise, I wait 6 months, or when the chart tells you the price has kind of hit a floor, it's just holding steady there for a long period of time. I know right now a lot of cards are just being bought out on TCG Player, which is not a good thing for us collectors. But let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. Kind of a long video. I'll catch you guys next time.